Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We got my dad's 93 F-250 sitting here. See the hood's up. Don't have real good viewing angles on this, so gonna have to bear with me on this one. However, we were trying to get this thing running, and we did some diagnostics on it here. We did know that the fuel pumps were giving him problems. This truck sat for 3 or 4 years without running, and probably the 3 or 4 years prior to that, it ran very, very little. So maybe once every few months, it would start up and maybe move if it was lucky. He very rarely drove it, just didn't drive it. It's a 460 truck, so fuel prices were astronomical, and he just parked it and drove other stuff. So it's been sitting for years, at least 8 years. So before it didn't run, we were dealing with a truck that it would start up, but it would run very, very poorly. And I can actually start it up for you here so you can hear how it actually runs. And I'm going to show you what we did to hopefully fix this. So right now, it's running pretty decent. And it's not acting up at all. But as soon as this truck gets a little bit warm, it'll start sputtering, missing. It'll just start running very, very funny. And we've only contributed this to the fact that it's got a bad computer. It's really weird because earlier today I had this thing sitting here running and it was doing the weirdest stuff. Check engine light was on, it was idling really low, it was idling really rough, and just no good. I mean, it was just running terrible. So right now it's running fine. We had some other stuff that we had to fix up as well, and I'll show you what we did there. But before, the truck wouldn't even run this good. So we did have some other issues that we had to repair and fix. So we're going to go ahead and see exactly what is going on with this truck, and I'm going to show you what I ran into already with this truck. So this truck's been running here for probably 5 minutes or so, not very long, and it's already starting to act a little bit funny, and it hasn't thrown the check engine light yet. But I do know that whenever I plug the computer into it, I don't get a reading. So I'm leaning towards the computer's bad in this. Like I said, I replaced the computer, and the computer I got was no good. So I have the original computer back in it right now, and it wouldn't run before. But we are still dealing with a runnability issue with this truck, and I need to figure out what it is. But I got to let it run a little bit and see if it'll throw the check engine light. But it's definitely not running very happily. But we're going to try and see what this thing does. So we're up here on top of the engine, and we have the computer plugged into it, and we're doing a data stream. See how there's no data here? I should be seeing something on all of this, and I'm seeing absolutely nothing. So the truck is running, and you can see that the plugs are plugged in over here, but I have no data. So this tells me that the computer is not working. So it's running, and it's working enough to run, but it's not working correctly. It's basically in limp mode. It doesn't know what to do. So it sits here and it idles, and it'll idle poorly, it'll hit and miss, it'll jump around a little bit, but we have no data coming from the computer. And I should be able to read all this data, even though it is an EEC system. I still can read this data, and I'm not getting anything. So that says a lot for the computer. I'm going to show you something else that we can pinpoint the computer. So you can see we have the computer out of this truck, and it will run like this. However, we didn't find anything wrong inside this computer visually. However, today it wants to run okay. This morning, it did not. So if you come back here and you turn your key on, so we got our fuel pump assembly here. If you turn your key on and this pump runs consistently, never does its prime and shut off, and just runs and runs and runs, generally that's the immediate sign that the PCM is bad. Earlier today, that's what this was doing. And that is a surefire sign that you have a computer that's going bad, because it'll be sporadic. It will get upset and then be okay. So in dealing with this truck here, if you come in here and you turn the key on, you can hear the fuel pump. Now, if we turn the key on and the fuel pump just runs and runs and runs and runs, then you know that the PCM is bad. So we haven't had these problems today as of this afternoon. And we're just going to take that for what it is. I have another computer coming. So we're going to go ahead and change this computer out again. But we're also going to show you some other issues we ran into with the fuel pump with this. And I've never ran into this before, so this will be something new. So I know this truck was on the trailer, in the beginning of this video, but I wanted to add this in because, I was talking about the computer being an issue. And you can see that we have the computer in here, and this is the original one. And I wanted to show you the fuel pump. So I was talking about the fuel pump running continuously. And this is what we're going to do here. So we're going to turn the key on. So the key's on. See the check engine light's on, so that means the computer's active. We'll come back here, and this fuel pump just runs and runs. So that pump should only run maybe a couple seconds. So we'll come back in here and start this thing up, and you can see how bad it sounds. So idling really, really low. If you put it in gear, it goes into limp mode. And you can hear how bad this thing is running, and you can see it too. So this is what I was talking about, computer issues. Yesterday when we shot the rest of this video, the beginning and the end of it, it was running fine. I couldn't get it to screw up no matter what I did. And then today I came out this morning and got it off the trailer, and this is what it was doing immediately. So it runs really, really bad, and we'll just do this again to show you. So you can hear this pump is just running. So that pump shouldn't be running like that with just the key on. And that's a telltale sign that the computer's bad. And I have moved this harness all around underneath here, and nothing I do makes a difference for this. Now I'm going to show you the inside of this computer here. Now there's not a whole lot wrong that you can really visually see. Nothing black, nothing burnt. However, I finally got the back of this case off, and you see right there that little brown spot? Oh, right there. That little brown spot right there. That is the bottom of this cap. And if you look under here a little bit, you can see it's a little brown under there. So this capacitor here is going bad. And that's what's causing our runnability issues. And I had bought the other computer for this, and it ran for a little while and then started to do the same thing. And when I say little while, I mean maybe 5 minutes. So you get a reman computer. That doesn't necessarily mean they replaced everything. They only replaced the stuff that was bad at the time, the stuff that showed up bad whenever they would reman them. So this is a common issue. This is what the Arizona truck did to me. We had a capacitor going bad, and it was going bad randomly. So we ended up getting a computer for it, and the new computer fixed that truck. So just trying to get a good computer for this truck here, and hopefully that'll fix up the runnability issues. But we'll go ahead and continue into the video that we started with. Just wanted to patch this in here so that you guys could see what I was talking about for computer problems and how they can be hit and miss, and they can really screw you up because you'll try to data log and you won't get nothing, or you'll get something and then all of a sudden you get nothing, or you get random codes. It just does really, really funky stuff. I mean, these computers are 30 some years old. This one here would be, let's see, so from 93. I mean, depends on when it was made and when it was built. So we'll continue on with the rest of the video, but just wanted to patch this in for you. So I have the remnants of 2 fuel canisters here. We have a pump, we have the hat, we have the valves of the hat, we have the can, and we have the bottom of the can. Now this is the whole fuel filter, fuel setup, whatever you want to call it. There's no sock on the bottom of this, but this is your fuel pickup. So this is your pump, obviously, and it does pick up fuel from the bottom and send it out the top. And this is where it gets a little bit strange for me. So this is the bottom of your canister here. That's what's in here. You have your draw pipe there. You can kind of see it in here. Now, inside this, we've cut it off, is a little like container housing here. And inside there is this little rubber check valve. So there's a little rubber check valve on the bottom here. And it will let fuel in and come out this side here. Now, the only way I can figure this works is the pump pulls fuel through the draw pipe. So this would go in here, like so. Now, whenever this sees pressure, it should effectively be restricted in this. So we have a little end piece here. So there's a screen on the end of this plug, and inside here is a very small little orifice, and I'm assuming it is restricted. You can kind of see light through it right there. So you have a end of the pipe here. There's a hole, and these items all work as a type of check valve. So whenever the pump is making pressure, and the pump goes in here like this, the pump makes pressure, and it should be restricted by the orifice that's inside here. So it's constantly pumping fuel. However, the fuel is just to circulate to keep it cool. Now, when you need full demand, it should still push fuel out of this orifice. However, the fact that you have a demand, it should follow the path of least resistance. Now, that would be obviously through the very large holes at the top here. And this is what we have here without the hat on. You have some grommets on here, and these seal up against the top of the hat. So these seals would seal against the hat, and these are just glued together, so to speak. And what you get is this is your feed out, and this would be your return back. Now, when the pump is just circulating, it will circulate through the standpipe, and back into the can. This keeps the fuel moving so that the pump isn't deadheaded whenever fuel isn't being used that much. Best I can tell is there was a failure in this canister at the bottom, where the check valve at the bottom is bad, and then also the orifice is not working correctly. Be it there may be a hairline crack in this pipe, the O-ring on the pickup tube may be bad, there could be a crack in the top of this hat somewhere. However, there was a malfunction somewhere in this, because these pumps, I have 2 of these now, work wonderfully. They pump a lot of fuel, they move a lot of fuel, they work. But whenever they pump, it's not making any pressure out of the tube. So I had one hat. So like I said, we have 2 hats here. We had one hat here. This one would dribble out of the, or I'm sorry, this one wouldn't dribble out of the tube. This one would dribble out of the tube. This one would only fill up the can. So I decided I'm going to figure out how these things work. So I took the one, and it was broken. So I took this one here, and this is your feed side, and there's a little check valve that goes in here like this. So as you get fuel pressure, it would push this check valve out of the way and let fuel out of the feed. So this would supply fuel to the truck. On the other side, you have the return. There's also another valve. Whenever the pump is making pressure, there's a diaphragm in here. So what this diaphragm does is it sees fuel pressure and pushes out. When it pushes out, it pushes on the valve, and the valve would open like this. So I'll bring this over so you can see it a little better here. So you have a valve in here. Whenever the fuel pump puts pressure against the diaphragm and pushes on the valve, it opens the return, and your return fuel comes out this side. So that is how it selects the returns from tank to tank. So when you pressure up the system, it puts pressure on this valve, which opens this, which gives you return fuel back to the tank. So this is really neat. This works really well. I think it's a great idea. However, I think that the check ball that is in this side, it works great until it doesn't. But that doesn't explain the fact that there is a orifice from your standpipe port, which is this guy here. So I'll use the larger one here so you can see. You have your standpipe port, which is here. What it does is you get fuel that will come out right here. So as the fuel is pumped in from the bottom of the canister, it goes into the bottom of the pump, comes out the top of the pump, and makes pressure, and then it goes back down the orifice, through the orifice tube, and it fills up the can. However, it doesn't make either enough pressure or there's a problem in here. Now these pumps, I have 2 of them. They run, they work great. However, we weren't getting pressure. So I was really confused as to why one would dribble and one would only fill up the can. So I took the other one here and tore it apart a little bit. So this is our feed side. Now you can see that the spring is in here still. This spring is stuck. It is stuck in there. So this pump could not overcome the spring in the check ball in here because it is stuck inside the plastic. So this is the one that filled up the can but did not dribble out of the tube. And this is the spring here. We'll give you a better close-up of it here. So this is the spring with the little stopper on it here. And this is what's stuck in the other fuel cap. So this whole little assembly right here is your pressure assembly, which is what holds the pump. When you turn this pump on, it would push this ball out of the way, which would allow fuel to travel up into the sending unit into your fuel lines. This also, through this diaphragm, see if I can get this out of here for you. So the diaphragm has a little tiny hole in it here, behind it, right here. So what it does is it pushes this diaphragm out in the middle, which in turn pushes on the check valve assembly. So pushes on this and returns fuel back to that tank. Now this is an OEM pump. How the aftermarket ones work, I'm not sure. However, you could have a bad diaphragm in here. You could have a bad seal here. You could have some dirt in here. You could also have a bad O-ring on this side of the check valve. Now this check valve is kind of rebuildable, but you'd have to tear it apart like I did to these. And most of the time you're going to break all the clips, and they are glued together. So getting these back together and staying is virtually, I'm not going to go with impossible, but it's a pain in the butt. So while I did not figure out why I had two pumps that would not make enough pressure to run the truck. So never did figure that out. So is it the pump that's weak and it's not moving enough flow? Or is it something bad in the cap assembly that's not letting pressure go the way it wants to go or needs to go? Or is it the check valve in the bottom of the can or the orifice in the bottom of the can that is giving you problems? So this little rubber valve here is the valve in the bottom of the can, and you can see that it's deformed, it's kind of warped, it kind of likes to hold shape a little bit there. So it's entirely possible that, you know, this is one of the problems, this little check valve here. But I couldn't figure out why, for the life of me, that you know, this whole assembly, which is kind of over-engineered, why would it continuously fill up the can and not fill up the fuel line? Because realistically, the fuel line should be the easiest route. However, if the pump isn't making enough pressure and it can't overcome this little check, then I assume that that would be the issue, because at that point, the orifice is only a slowdown. There's no valve between the pump and the bottom of this can. So I'm not sure why it would do that. So we ended up replacing the whole can assembly in this truck with a new pump, and that's what got it going. So not sure why it didn't want to run the way it did, because, you know, both pumps run and the truck still wouldn't run. No fuel pressure. So we ended up replacing the pump assembly and it ran again. Now we're just dealing with the computer issue. But I wanted to go ahead and show you guys some telltale signs for the PCMs in these trucks. This one's obviously a 93, but it works across the board through all of the gasoline trucks, where if you have a consistent fuel pump with the key on, you know, usually I would say 95% of the time the computer's bad. This one is showing intermittent signs of computer failure. So it's comes and goes and comes and goes. So, we had the other truck, the Arizona truck, that was doing the same thing. We had a PCM that was coming and going, and whenever it ran the right way, I would be able to connect to it with the computer. And whenever it started acting up, it would not run correctly, and I wouldn't be able to see anything through the computer. So it also threw a check engine light, and this also had a check engine light earlier today. So the only thing that we had changed from this morning to now is I had the battery disconnected for a few hours, and I had unplugged the computer from the truck. Nothing else has changed. So the fact that unplugging the computer and plugging it back in has basically fixed it points it yet again to the PCM being the issue. So I wanted to go through all this fuel pump talk with you guys. I've been doing some fuel pump and fuel tank videos because this seems to be a common issue with these trucks, being that they're 30 years old. They don't like the ethanol gas. The ethanol gas kills these pumps, and a lot of check valve failures. So it's hard to get a pump to technically last in these trucks. So my recommendation for anybody looking for a replacement fuel pump for your truck is buy something that is local. Do not buy the cheapest part. Do not buy just the pump. Buy the whole can pump assembly, because you could pull this all apart, replace the pump, and still have a problem, because you can have a bad check valve inside. I mean, you can see how many valves and returns and routings there are in this fuel can. So it's not as simple as just bypassing a hose or jumpering some stuff to make it work. It doesn't just take the fuel and shove it in the line. It's got to do all this other stuff too. So you have, options for these pumps and everything, but I would suggest buying a whole new can. Tried using a used pump in this truck just to see if it would work, and it ended up not working. It ended up doing exactly what we had. So we had a problem in the cans. In fact, both cans turned out to be bad, just in two different ways. So we'll keep you guys updated on getting this truck going. We're going to wait for another computer to show up, and I'm hoping that it will fix all of our rogue issues with this truck, and we can finally get it off the trailer. So appreciate you watching the video, guys and girls, and hopefully that this will shed some light on some fuel pump problems and maybe some PCM problems that guys are dealing with. So hopefully this helps you out and can steer you in the right direction. So check out my other videos if you found this one interesting or helpful, and hopefully we can keep making these videos for you guys. So thanks for watching again. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.